say Torah unto you, and also we welcome you into the house of Yah. We certainly welcome you in here today, and we do ask the Most High that He will definitely give us something to nourish on, something to um, think about, something to grow on, something to apply, make the actual application. That's what we want. We want the actual application. Hallelujah. And it's one thing to be able to hear the word and hear Torah. It's another thing to make the application and put it into your work, put it into your lifestyle, put it into your habits, put it into your thought process. It has to be a part of you. When they gave the teaching, it was the Levitical tribe that did the teaching unto Yasharel, and that was called taking the written Torah, the written oracles and everything that came down from Moses, and then they were supposed to teach the elders, teach the families, teach the head of the household, who in turn would teach their next generation. And just like when we seen Yahusha at the age of 12, and he was in the synagogue on the Shabbat day, and he was asking those who had studied the law for their lifetime, and he was at the age of 12, and he was asking them questions, and they were asking him questions, and from the time our Messiah did that at the age of 12, that's what they call the bar mitzvah. And they just kind of taken it, they took it to a different place, but to have an understanding of Torah, to have an understanding of the teachings of the Most High and what He expects of us. And why is that important? Why is it important to know what He expects of us? Because when we get to Revelation, and there's a lot of people wanted to talk about Revelation coming up, what's coming up at the end here. But when you get to Revelation, especially the 22nd chapter, 21st, 22nd chapter, you're looking at a time where He opens up the books. He's going to open up your book, and then He's going to judge you according to your works. And it says it right there. It says it in Revelation 22. You're going to be judged according to your works. So everything that you live, your lifestyle, the decision you make, the sum of your life is the decisions that you make and the choices that you make to produce your particular lifestyle. Where I'm at right now, I look at I look at my lifestyle and everything that I'm doing. It's the summation of all the choices I made to get to where I'm at now. And I would tell the young people as well, if you can look into the future and you want a certain lifestyle and how to live and everything, that's based on the choices and the decisions that you're making today. For a lot of us, we finally get there. We're up there. We're up there at that place, and we go, oh man, I look at my life, I'm going, man, this is it, huh? I mean, because I look at the young people, and you guys can think, long term, but when you get to where I'm at, it's not long term, it's kind of short term, and you're looking at what you're doing, and you realize that I'm here because of the choices that I made. And so if you want to live a certain kind of life and be a certain kind of person, it's the choices that you're making early in life that's going to get you there. So, the sum of your life is the decisions, the choices that you make each and every day. And it's important because it's going to be in your book. It's definitely going to be in your book. When He open up the book, He is going to He's going to judge you on everything that you have said and did. All right. So I just want to make a couple of quick announcements before we get going here. Now, especially on tomorrow, we're going to have a special prayer for Zakin Bateman, Zakin Sauls. They are taking their trip. They're going to depart on Friday. They're departing to Ghana first, and then from Ghana down to South Africa. Around Johannesburg, and then going up to Limpopo. Now, what's going on with that? And we want to pray for them. We want the Most High to cover them, protect them on their journey. and the people that they get in front of, meeting the ambassador in Ghana. The first, when they get off the plane, one of their first appointments in Ghana is they got to go in Accra and go and see the ambassador to Ghana. They've already got an appointment with them, which is interesting that, they know who we are. They know the Zakinium, Zakin Bateman, Zakin Saul, Zakin Johnson, myself, and some of the others, and what we plan on doing, what our long-term goals and objectives are, getting onto the continent. So then they're going down to South Africa, and they're going to meet with royalty, those who own the land. You get outside of the municipalities in Africa, down in those different countries, and Africa's a large continent, but you get outside the municipalities, and all of that land belongs to tribal people. It's tribal land, and when you say tribal, then you have hierarchy. You've got royalty, you got kings and princes and stuff like that. So they're going to be in the company of kings and the royals that actually we are in business with in South Africa. And there's some of us in this assembly that have gotten lots and plots. They call them plots, or lots, and so we're going to be working on that. So we want to pray for them. It's going to be a special prayer on tomorrow. Akoti, Sandra, what time is that prayer? I think it's. You know what time that prayer is tomorrow? It just slips my mind, but I think it's. Is it 6:00 Central Standard Time, or because I know they're on East Coast time, and I do ask for your forgiveness because I should know that, but I really think it's. She's looking it up real quick, but anyway, once she gives it to me, I'll make an announcement real quick for tonight, but. I want to go to before we get started. We've got some things coming up. We have the Pesach coming up on April 1st, where is it 2 weeks from today, or 3 weeks from today? And we'll be here. We'll probably get here about 5:30. We're going to have our meal, and we're going to try to do it like Yahusha did it the first. Well, his last meal. 6:00 Eastern time. Okay, so that would be 5:00 Central. It's 6:00 Eastern time for the prayer call for the Zakinium, 5:00 Central time. And those who are out west, it would be 3:00 Pacific and Mountain time. And then, right. Anyway, those different time zones. All right. Pesach, April 1st, we'll be here. We're going to have you'll notice that the Mashiach had a meal. And they call it his Last Supper. You see that with a lot of people that are on death row. They know they're going to die. They ask them, what do you want for your last meal? And they get to choose what they want for their last meal. So there was a meal. He did have a meal. They prepared the lamb, and there was a meal. Now, after it even says after they supped, and we'll get into it a little bit more. But it was after they had their meal, is when he went into with the unleavened bread and the cup of wine, which brought in it was a New Testament, or New Testament. And I hate to say new and old, but in the Greek they used the word testament, where in the Hebrew they would use the word what? Covenant. They would use the word covenant. If you were Hebraic, you would say covenant. This is the cup of the new covenant. The Greek, they would use testament. This is the New Testament. And so you see the difference there, depending on the culture and the language that is used. Now, some people go into a deeper study of trying to separate testament from covenant, but we know that that our Messiah is the one that is bringing in the new covenant, his life and his blood. When they made a covenant with the Most High back in the day, the covenant was, you always cut a covenant, there had to be some blood that was shed. And so we see the shedding of blood of our Messiah, which means when you say shedding of blood, what it means is he gave his life. He gave his life, and it was a brutal death. It was ignoble. It wasn't an honorable death. It was, he had to suffer a great deal when he died. And if you look up the word crucifixion and excruciating pain. Excruciating comes from the word of pain and agony, and that word didn't come into existence until after our Messiah. So you look at the word excruciating, you look at the word crucifixions. I mean, they had that form of capital punishment, but it just took on a different meaning when it was the only begotten of the Father, when it was the Son of Yah. It just took on a different scope and a different meaning. But it was prophesied that our Messiah was going to die outside the camp. And when it says he was going to die outside the camp, because our capital punishment was stoning. The Israelite culture, their capital punishment was stoning. So when they would, when you got stoned, that was, you was going to die, because they wouldn't stop throwing rocks until you were buried under the rocks and died. So stoning. But the Romans who were in rule of that day, their capital punishment was they wanted you to suffer before you died. They wanted you to feel the pain. They wanted you to feel that life seeping out of you. It was slow and excruciating type of death. In fact, they would leave you up there on that stake until you passed. But with our Messiah, because the Sabbath was coming, so they said, we got to get him down off of the stake, because it's the Sabbath is coming, and it was a time of unleavened bread. And so they actually went to take him down. You know the story. They went to take him down, and he had already died. They didn't think he was dead that soon, but he had died. But anyway, we're coming up at that time. This is a very important time for us, for those who know him and know his word, know his teachings. It's been taught unto you. This is a very important time. This is not a time, and this is something that, as bad as the story is, because we're going to get into Isaiah 53. Why? Because it says, like it says in Isaiah 53:1, who hath believed our report, and to whom is the arm of Yahuwah revealed? And so, starting at verse number 2, going all the way down to in Isaiah 53:1, starting at verse 2, going on down. I think it's verse 18. Is that the last verse? I think it is. You're talking about a very, it's a very ugly picture of what our Messiah had to go through. So it's not something that we should take lightly. And when we get to 1 Corinthians chapter 11, and Shaul had to upbraid them. He had to, because they weren't doing it right. It wasn't, it wasn't performed that way. Now, the very first Pesach, we know what the very first Pesach was. It was a lamb and bitter herbs, and they had to, whatever they didn't eat of the lamb, they burned up that night. There was no leftovers. Nothing was carried out. And then you see unleavened bread, because they had to, when they made their bread, they had to make it quick. They didn't have time for it to rise. And we know that leaven makes the bread rise, but they ain't got time to make no bread rise. So they had unleavened bread. But the Most High said that leaven that you put in there is an agent that actually produces, it'll actually produce things that are contrary to his teaching. So he didn't want any leaven in it. And he gave us the illustration that 11 was sin in that respect. We also have to understand that when Yahusha was teaching about the different kingdoms, he said the kingdom of the Shamaim is like unto leaven, but he's not saying the leaven type of sin, so we have to use it in its proper context. When they were coming out of Egypt and they didn't have time for the bread to rise, and he says that this is, you're not, the Most High looks at it as coming out of sin or coming out of Egypt. You have to have that sin out. I don't want you having sin in you, especially if I'm going to meet up with you, because they were going to go out to meet the Most High. And it's just like us, when we meet up with him, we can't, if you want to meet up with him and you still have sin in your life, you're not going to fare too well. It's not going to be a good meeting. Even though he is merciful and he's shown his mercy, Yahusha tells us in Matthew 23:23 that the weightier matters of the law is judgment, mercy, and faith. So when I read, from Genesis to Malachi, and I read the prophets, I see judgment, I see mercy, and I see faith. And that's the weightier part of the law. So he is merciful, and that's what we pray is for his mercy, because he is merciful. But he doesn't take too kindly to sin and transgressions. Sin and transgression, he doesn't take kindly to that. And that's why in our commemorating this special feast, we have to understand that he doesn't want us transgressing and going against his word. He doesn't want that. And those who have not gotten the leaven out, and they have to appear before him, like it says in Ezekiel, the 20th chapter, he's going to get rid of all the rebels and all the who? Transgressors. All the rebels and transgressors are going to be weeded out. They're not making it into the kingdom. They're not going to make it into his domain. He's going to get rid of them because he doesn't take kindly to transgression. And we should understand that, especially when we read through it from the time that they came out of Egypt. We see all the times where he was judging his people because of their transgressions. And so, a lot of people say, well, I thank Yah for Yahusha. I thank him because if it wasn't for Yahusha, man, I wouldn't. That's still no excuse for sin. That's still no excuse for transgressing against him. Well, he died for me and he took all my sins away. Not exactly. I mean, when you have the fulfillment of it at the end of days, yes, all of those sins will be, but until we get to the end there, if you sin and transgress against him, you're going to be held accountable for that. You're going to be held accountable for that. And we know it's going to be heavier on us because it talks about those who have tasted of the Ruach HaKodesh and of the life to come. I mean, you've got that earnest down payment. You've tasted of it, and then you go back and turn from it. He says you crucify him afresh. So there's no tolerance. He has no tolerance. And sometimes people think, man, that's just unfair. And he goes and he talks about, aren't you unfair? You want to talk about Yah being unfair, me being unfair, aren't you unfair? Because it's not hard to live this life. When people talk about how hard, you can't live, no, it's not hard to live the life, especially when he gives you the Ruach and he gives you all the fruit of the Ruach, and then he tells you what your building blocks are. He says, once you do this, you'll never fall. You guys got, do you know that we have everything it takes to make it for eternal life? We have it all. We got everything it takes to make eternal life. So when we try to say, well, it's not fair, he's going to say, well, aren't you not fair? I've given you everything you need to make it in. I've given it unto you. In fact, some of y'all have my Ruach. I've given you my spirit, my Ruach. And those who testify that they have his Ruach, you're talking at the big gate. I just want to tell you, you're talking at the big gate because if you have his Ruach, there is no excuse for sin and transgression. because we see that in First Yahuchanan, because it talks about those who have his word, those who have his seed, they what? In First Yahuchanan, it says those who have his word or has his seed, they cannot. Yeah. So you're talking at the big gate. If you say you got it, then you need to be living, a life that is pleasing unto him. Because if you say you got it, but then you don't do right, then actually that's an accusation against Abba. And like he says, now my son gave his life for you, and that wasn't good enough. And so now here we are. So I would be somewhat fearful and be asking the Most High, well, then I've got to get this thing right, because I don't want to end up like some of these that are going to be left out. So I want to go to first. I want to go to first. I'm going to go to Revelation 20. Let's go to Revelation 20, and let's read verse 12 and 13, because nobody's going to be able to escape. 12 and 13, Revelations 20 and 12. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before Yahuwah, and the books were open. The books were open. This is all the recording of your life. This is everything about you. There, he put something in you that knows everything about you, that will give a testimony of everything that you've said and done. It's embedded in us. It's in our consciousness. It's there. He put it there. And so it's kind of like a recording mechanism. And that's why he says every idle word is going to be brought back into judgment, because it's already it's in here. Everything since I've been standing here or sitting here speaking, all of it goes up into the air. It'll come back. When he commands for it to come back, it'll come back. So that's why a lot of people say, that's why I don't talk a lot, because I know I'm going to be very careful what the words I say. But is it just what's audible? Oh, no, because we see in Genesis chapter 18, we see where Sarah was in her tent, and the Most High and two angels came down, and theophany and stuff came, and was speaking to Abraham, and he says, this time next year, Sarah's going to have a baby. And Abraham was like, oh, shoot, I'm 90, 98, 99. Sarah's past the age of the flower where, she cannot have any kids anyway. So, and Sarah heard it, and inside the tent, she didn't speak it, because the Bible says, our book tells us, she said within herself. She laughed within herself, saying, I'm past the flower of my age. How am I going to have a child? And she laughed. And she was in the tent, and Abba was outside the tent in a theophany form. You guys know what I'm talking about. Abraham knew he came down from the sky. Abraham knew that's Abba. I don't know how he knew, but because he said that he didn't reveal his name unto Abraham. We see that with Moses, right? He says, I didn't give Abraham my name. Abraham just knew me as what? El Shaddai. El Shaddai. That's how Abraham knew was El Shaddai. But he says, Moses, I talk to you face to face, Moses, I'm going to give you my name. And so he gave him his, anyway, Sarah was in the tent, right? Within herself, and she laughed. So the Most High says, Sarah, why you laugh? And what did Sarah say? Isn't that human nature? I mean, that's folks look at this book, think these people. No, that's human nature. And she said, "Oh no, I didn't laugh." He said, "No, you laughed." And see, that's how a lot of us are going to be when it comes to the Most High when these books are open, because we're going to say, "No, I didn't say that." Bring it back. "Oh, I didn't do that." Let me show you. I mean, so what are you going to say? What are we going to say to him at this time? You know, not this, I'm just using this because this, if you're here in Revelations 20 and 12 and 13, then most likely you ain't going to make the kingdom. But the reason why I'm using this is to show you that when it talks about the books and the books being open and everything like that, because Abba Yah already knows those who are in the Lamb's book of life. He already knows that. We don't know. That's why we're striving to make it in. Just like Yahusha, when they once Yahusha was teaching, disciples said, "Who then gonna be saved?" I mean, they listen to his teaching. They go, "Man, I don't know if too many people gonna make it in." And he said, "What? You strive. I ain't telling you if you made it or not. These are his students, his disciples, and he told them, I'm not going to tell you if you made it. I want you to strive. Strive to enter in." And so we don't know, so we have to strive. So we're living every day, doing everything, trying to make our decision, make our right choices. And because he says here, "And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before Yahuwah, and the books were open, and another book was open, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the book, written in the books, according to what? According to their works." No, I don't believe none of this stuff from the Roman religion talks about you ain't got to do no work. All the work was done. I don't believe none of that. I don't believe none of that, because he would not have told his disciples. He would not have told or talk about your works. He wouldn't have done that if it didn't matter what you did or you didn't have to do no works. He did all the works. I don't have to do nothing. Don't believe that. That's what the Roman religion teaches, but that's not true. "And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them, and they were judged, every man according to their works." And then for the rest of us, in Revelations 22 and verse number 12. You had 20 and 12, Revelations 22 and 12. "And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me to give every man according as his work shall be." According to his work shall be. I don't have to keep the Sabbath. I ain't got to keep no feast. I ain't got to do nothing. He did it all. Mashiach did it all, so I don't have to do anything. I'm just living. I just believe it. I just believe. What do you believe? I believe he did it all. I don't have to do nothing. He did it all. Well, you better get busy and live what the type of life that he told you and ordained you to live. And there is work to be done. And then one more real quick, and it's Matthew chapter 16 and verse number 27. Matthew 16:27. I want to dispel all of this, this Roman religion stuff that you don't have to do anything. He did it all. The Mashiach did it all. When you say he did it all, there is no more sacrifice for what? Sin. There is no more sacrifice for sin. In that respect, yeah, he was the perfect sacrifice. And in Romans or Hebrews, it tells us, there remaineth no more sacrifice for sin, because he did it once and for all. And that's important to know, because he is our lamb, and he was the lamb that was slain and given his life. There remaineth no more a sacrifice for sin. So when we look at Pesach and keeping Pesach, the sacrifice has already been given. The lamb has already been given. They kept the lamb and killing the lamb up until the time of our Mashiach. And some of them might have did after our Mashiach was here until they learned. Because once you learn something, then once I know something, then I do better. You know, I gotta grow. I have to learn. Here, for the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Abba with his angels, his malaks, and then he shall reward every man according to his works. So there is something I have to do. It ain't just singing and dancing, clapping your hands, rolling, spitting, shouting, jumping up and down, using the pews as hurdles, the pulpit as a high jump. Just it ain't. It's you. When you leave these four walls, you better have some works. It's good to come in here and rejoice, and because he tells us that we are to enter into his courts with praise. So it's good for us to do that, to praise him, lift him up. But when you leave this place, you better have some works. Better be putting forth the works and being obedient unto him. So well, there's a couple of places. Let's look at Romans 1, verse 7, because even Shaul knew what he was talking about. Romans 1 and 7, and he says, to all that be in Rome, beloved of Yah, called saints. To be was added to that. They added that to bring about to make it simpler, but I don't know why they have to. Sometimes I see the italic, and why do they even put it in there? They put it in there, you know. They did that anyway. Called saints. So he's talking to those who are at Rome who are called saints, and you know, the word saints did not come into the language and to be understood from the Greeks or the Romans. The Greeks spoke Greek, Koine Greek. The Romans, they spoke Latin. And then from Latin, you get English. Because if you look at Latin, they use the same alphabet that we use. If you look at Latin, it's just kind of rearranged and stuff like that, and it's pronounced differently. But from that Latin, you get English. And there's some people who believe that his name has always been Jesus, and I don't mean to offend anybody. But even in Yochanan, the 19th chapter, when he was on the stake, they put a plaque over his head, and it was written in what? Anybody know? Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. No English. And Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, those three languages, none of them had a J. None of them. And so at the time that our Messiah was here, and they said, you know, it was Hebrew because most of the Israelites spoke Hebrew, but you did have those who spoke Greek, and what were they called? Hellenists. And so they taught some Israelites how to be like the Greeks, and so they were called Hellenists, and they spoke the Greek language. And then you had the Roman Empire and the Kaisers, and they spoke Latin. The Latin is an old language. It is. It goes back, you know. It's not as old as Greek or Hebrew, but it is an old language. The new language on the block is English, and you try to tell people, hey, come on now, this is just simple knowledge. You could be in third grade and understand that. A third grader can comprehend that. It's not hard to comprehend, but when somebody has been controlled so much to where they can't think, you know, intellectually, then that just lets you know how much control they have over you. When you can't. No, they always spoke English. They didn't speak English back in that day. They didn't speak. Our Messiah didn't speak English at all. Doesn't mean he doesn't know English. He just didn't speak English. Even when he was in the Shamaim and he spoke to Shaul on the road to Damascus, he spoke to him in the Hebrew language. And Shaul, when he went to the people and he was going to address the people, he knew I better speak Hebrew, because if I speak Greek, they ain't going to listen to me. So I better speak in their language. So he knew. But then you have people who are so intelligent today. I mean, these people got so much intellect that they can't understand that the newest language on the block is English. They're too smart for that. They're too smart. And you just try to tell them, come on now, I don't mean to offend you, but I think J is the last letter added to the English alphabet. Even when they had the English alphabet, they didn't have a J. They added that. I think the J and a V were the last letters that were added to the English alphabet. Anyway, so called to be called saints, grace to you and peace from if we look up that word, can you pull that up? It's G40 in the Greek, hagios. Hagios. It says, is it up there? You guys see it? Okay, it says hagios, an awful thing, sacred, physically pure, morally blameless, or religious, ceremonially consecrated, most holy, one thing, saint, right? So that's hagios in the Greek. So we're going to go to the Hebrew and see, because these were when he said called saints, Shaul knew what he was talking about. Now, I was taught this verse. I was taught from the ministers and people from the Roman religion that these were the ones he was talking to, were the ones who had followed Acts 2:38. That's how I was taught. But Shaul knew what he was talking about when he said that. So to know who he's talking to, his audience, let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 33. I'll start with verse number 1. Deuteronomy 33 and verse number 1. And this is the blessing wherewith Musha, the man of Alua, blessed the children of Yasharel before his death. Are you reading with me? You tracking with me? Is it up there? Okay. And he said, Yahuwah came from Sinai and rose up from Seir unto them. He shined forth from Mount Paran, and he came with 10,000s. 10,000s mean, I'm not even going to count. I'm just telling you, there's just thousands upon thousands. 10,000s could have been millions, because, we see when they came out of Egypt, there was more than 1 million people came out. Because in the book of Numbers, when he was making up an army, that army of men that were 20 and over came up to about 600,000 soldiers. So when they came out of Egypt, you're talking about several million that came out. So he just said, instead of, because I don't think they said million, because they would just use the thousands and thousands upon thousands and stuff. Now we would say millions and billions, and he's got millions in the bank. She's got billions in the bank, right? So we use different terminology today. And he came with 10,000s of saints. From his right hand went a fiery law for who? His saints. From his right hand went a fiery law for them, which is his saints. Verse number 3, yea, he loved the people, all his saints are in thy hand, and they sat down at thy feet. Everyone shall receive of thy words. Moshe commanded us a law, the inheritance of the congregation of Yaakov. Your inheritance is going to be determined on whether you can keep his laws. And he was king in Yasharon. Moses was a king. When the heads of the people and the tribes of Yasharel were gathered together. And he's going to give them their last blessing and talk about their future as we go forward. But in verse number 2, Deuteronomy 33 and 2, this is the first time this word is used in its context. So when you go to Romans 1 and 7, that's not, well, you're talking, centuries and centuries and centuries later from when it was first originated. And so in verse number 2, let's go to that, look up that word saints. And it is H6944. Is that right? Is that right? Okay. It says it's Kadesh, set apart, special, set apart from the rest for a special function. We have to remember that. That's the root word. Let's go down to G. In parentheses G, it's used in this context, so I'm going to scroll down here to G. And now we've seen what hagios means in Greek. So Kadesh in Hebrew, right? And it is someone or something that has been separated from the rest for a special purpose. Someone or something that has been separated from all the rest for a special purpose. Is there a verse, does a verse kick into your head about being separated? I mean, peculiar people? We're a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a chosen generation, a peculiar people. Yeah. So he's not talking about the whole world. These are special ones. These are the ones that I've chosen, and he's the one that separated them. He's the one that separated them. You didn't separate yourself. A lot of times that's what we want to think. I'm gonna separate myself, but when he's giving you an order, an ordinance, a command or instructions. Let me say that. Because sometimes when you say law, people run from law. It's like people run from laws. You know who runs from laws? Criminals. That's what I was thinking. The only ones who run from the law is criminals. So as soon as you say law, I'm not on to Abba Yah, it's like you don't want to be under my law. You lawless. You're just a criminal. They just run. They scatter. So you got, Abba saying, hey, I'm giving you instructions. I'm giving you a law. And like he told us in as we were reading it here, it's the inheritance of Jacob. That's it's his inheritance. Because my law, remember we read it in Deuteronomy 33, 2 and 3. He said he gave them a fiery law. And that was the inheritance of, and it was given to the ones who he separated. I'm separating you from all these other nations, and I'm going to give you some instructions that you have to keep. And if you keep these instructions, I've got, there's an inheritance for you. I've got so much that I'm gonna do for you, the glory. I'm a just shine some of my glory on you in front of mankind. And they just going to look at y'all and say, because they even says in Deuteronomy chapter 7, it says, or 4, and he says, the other nations are going to look unto Yasharel and say, oh, this is a wise and understanding people. They're going, man, these people are, because when you study Torah, and Torah is a set of instructions for you, but when you study Torah, Shaul was a Pharisee of Pharisees. He studied Torah. That's all he had. He had Moses' teachings and the prophets. That's all he had. So when you read Romans and the first chapter and Galatians and Ephesians, and you're talking about all this moral, oh man, you got to be so moral. Shaul gets that from the law. He gets it from the law because he says, as touching the law, as touching the righteousness in the law, I'm blameless. The only way I can be blameless when it comes to the righteousness in the law, I have to study it. I have to learn it because I want it to rub off not only on my thought process, but my manner of life, my whole purpose for living, the whole purpose for me. I mean, what does it mean to you when he says, I made you in my image and my likeness? What does that mean to you? What does that mean to you? Does it mean when they say police, you scatter? I mean, you know what? What does that mean to you? When you say, I want to be in the image. We have an example. Because it says in Hebrews 1 and verse 7 or 8, he said he is the express image of Yah. So we have an example. None of us can say, Abba, you should have gave me an example. You know, a lot of times when we're in school and the professor or the instructors, they're teaching and somebody might, can you give me an example? Has that ever happened to you in class? I mean, can you give me an example? And so for us, if nobody's going to be able to say, I just can't, Abba, before you pass judgment, can you give me an example? You know what he's going to say? I gave you my son. I gave you my son. And I told you he's the express image of me. And I told you, you need to follow him. You need to follow in his steps. Because Kepha said he's our example that we should follow in his steps, who knew no sin, neither was any God found his mouth. So that's my example. That's my example. So he says here, set apart for a special service. The verse that comes to mind to me when I read that, where he says, I separated you from all people. I'm the one who did it. The verse that comes to mind for me is Leviticus 20:26. If you can put that up there real quick. Leviticus 20:26. And this wasn't part of my study, but as I was sitting here and reading that, remember actually what verse, this is what popped in my mind when I was just saying, this is what popped in my mind. And it says, Leviticus 20:26. And let's read that together. And ye shall be holy unto me, for I, Yahuwah, am holy, and have severed you from other people, that ye should be. Those are his saints. Those are the ones that he severed, or he separated you. And once he severed and separated you, he wants you to be like him. You can't be like him if you're running with everybody else. I can't be like him. If I got to keep up with the Joneses or keep up with all my peers, if I got to keep up, man, they did, I got to do it. They wearing this, I got to wear this. They doing this. If I got to keep up with the world, if I'm constantly looking at the world, what's the world doing? What are they doing? How do their women look? How do their men look? I got to keep up. If I'm constantly trying to keep up with the world, then I can't be like y'all. I can't be I can't be set apart for him. And if I'm focused on the world, then I can't do his purpose. Remember, it says set apart for a special purpose. Set apart for a special purpose. Another word for purpose, you have purpose in life. You have intentions. And another word for purpose is intent or intentions. So he intends for you to do something. I wonder what that is. I wonder if anybody, you think he's going to set you apart, give you some intentions, and then don't tell you what it is? That wouldn't be fair. That wouldn't be fair of us. Abba, you didn't tell me how to live. I did. Not only did I tell you how to live, but then I gave you my son who did exactly what the word told him to do. He went above and beyond because he told Pontius Pilate, he says, nobody takes my life. He said, Pontius Pilate said, don't you know I can? When Pontius Pilate was so see, we live in a very arrogant nation right now. I mean, this is very self-serving, arrogant nation. Can you imagine our Messiah standing before our president and he said, don't you know I can do all that? You can't do nothing that my Father didn't give you the power to do. Yahusha said, I can call legions of angels down here, wipe all y'all out. Wipe all y'all. As soon as you take a breath, just wipe all y'all out. He says, nobody takes my life. I'm gonna lay it down. So he went, not only did he show us how to live, but then he gave his life. And it says in Yahukanat, it says, no greater love than this, that a man will lay down his life for his friend. And you know what? That friend was a fornicator. That friend's a murderer. When it talks about he laid down his life for his friend, he became sin. So all those people that were liars were his friends. Now that's kind of hard, because they even tried to pin him on that, didn't they? Oh, you eat with the publican sinners. You just eat with our... Remember they tried to indict him on that? He said, I'm going to lay down my life for my friends. You mean sinners was his friend? Yeah. Yeah, that woman that was caught in adultery, when they wanted to kill her, I'm not. I'm not going to condemn you. Just don't do it again. That was his friend. He knew, and they said that was Mary Magdalene, but he knew he was going to lay down his life for an adulteress. He knew it. And he said, that's my friend. Now, it's hard for us to call criminals friends. You got any felony friends? I mean, it would be hard for us. I don't know them. But Yahusha wasn't like that. No, I know who you are. I know everything you've done, and I'm going to die for that sin. But you can't keep doing it. You can't keep killing folks. Because you keep killing folks, they're going to call you what? What kind? Serial. You can't keep killing folks. You're going to be a serial killer. You got to stop. You mean you're going to pay the price for my sin? And I took somebody's life? Yeah, I'm going to pay the price. Yep. But you can't keep doing it. So murderers, fornicators, adulterers, liars, cheaters, stealers, thieves. Because you might not have killed nobody, but you were grand theft. You know how to steal and corrupt. I mean, he died for all that. And we have to, leading up to Pesach, and we read Isaiah 53, because I know y'all been reading it. I know, because I would just, he starts off with 53:1, but I know you guys are reading that. I just have to I'm just believing, since we've been going to Isaiah 53:1, I'm just believing that you guys read it. Because when we come up to Pesach, this is what, because when we get to 1 Corinthians chapter 11, and we go down through there, you have to examine yourself. Because if you don't examine yourself, what? Anybody know? 1 Corinthians chapter 11. If you don't examine yourself, you're what? Unworthy. Unworthy. And this is the feast that we're coming up to is the only feast that you can keep 30 days later. None of the other feasts does it give you a grace period. Because he knew his son was going to be the Pesach. He was going to be the Passover. He was going to be the lamb slain. That was going to son. So nobody can say Abba Yah is not merciful. Nobody can say he's not merciful. Nobody can say he doesn't have grace. Because out of all the feasts, this is the only one, 30 days later, you can keep that feast. And we look at, this year it's April 1st, and we're going to be here. But we have to really, as we go through this teaching, and we're going to read Isaiah 53, but you got to examine yourself. You definitely got to look at your life and examine yourself, because no greater love than this. Never has it been done in the history. And let me tell y'all, Yahushua ain't going to do it again. He ain't going to do it again. No, because it says in Hebrews, he despised the shame. They took his human pride from him. They wouldn't even allow him to have any covering. Just a public display of they wouldn't even allow him to cover himself. We have to really look at what Yahushua went through at this time that we're leading up to. And I don't want it to be heavy burden, because there's twice a year in our feast where it's really time to really reflect on yourself. What's the other feast that we have? Atonement. Feast of Atonement. Because when we get to the Feast of Atonement, the one who was put out of the camp was Azazel. I don't want to say Azazel. It's Azazel that was put out of the camp. Because what was on Azazel when he left the camp? All the sins. He told, put your head on that, because I used to think Yahushua's the scapegoat. Yahushua's not the scapegoat. He's not the scapegoat. That's Azazel. It even gives his name in the Hebrew scriptures. In English we see scapegoat. In the Hebrew scripture that's Azazel. Lay all those sins on Azazel and get him out the camp. Because if that happens, guess where sin is? Outside the camp. It's not in here. And that's why you did it again? That's supposed to be out of the camp, not in the camp. So we have another feast that we can look, but this one here, you got the Passover lamb, Yahushua, then in atonement, at the time of atonement, he's the lamb that gave his life. So you see the similarity between Pesach and atonement. The lamb that gave his life and was bled was Yahushua. It was just symbolizing us coming up to Yahushua. Now we're on the other side, so we get to look back. They were before looking forward, keeping all these feasts looking forward. We're doing it looking back, because Yahushua is the fulcrum of time. But who has a greater It's not really a burden, but a greater responsibility. The ones leading up to or the ones after? I would think the ones after, because the ones leading up to it, they had the physical lamb, and they had to kill that lamb every year. Where we are, the lamb has already been slain. We don't kill a lamb every year. It's on us to look back and realize, yeah, my sins have been paid for. That's why he says, you better look at yourself. Shaul said that because he studied the law. He knew the law as concerning the righteousness in the law. I'm blameless. He studied the law because when you read in Deuteronomy 33, he gave it to the Levites. When you keep reading down there, he gave it to the Levites to teach the people. But Shaul was a chosen vessel because when it comes to knowing Torah, understanding Torah, oh man, that clock says 6:35. I'll just get started. Man, that's a long 5 minutes. Almost seems like an hour. All right. I looked at the clock because I'm thinking, man, I better hear him get in. I'm looking at the clock. Oh, it's only 6:35. Somebody's going to change it, y'all, and probably speed it up a few minutes. All right. So looking at being set apart for him and being called his saints. In Isaiah chapter 42, and I'm going to look at verse number 21. I'm going to start at verse 21. So Yahuwah is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He magnify the law and make it honorable. So when they were given the law, they were doing a lot of the outward appearance of the law, mainly just the outward. But Abba Yah didn't want, he wants the outside. He wants you to do and appear on the outside. But where did he really want the law? He wanted it in your heart. He didn't want you just to quote the Ten Commandments. And I know we do it on the Shabbat, but we should know those 10. I mean, and then there's others, like when we were in Leviticus. I know we're not in Leviticus 20:26, but did y'all see 27? Leviticus 20:27, did y'all see that? Or you just focused on verse 26? Did anybody focus on verse 27? No, we were just looking at verse 26. So verse 27 is a part of the law too. Huh? What does verse 27 say? So that's a part of the law as well. So we see the outward part of it, right? We see the outward part. But he wanted, when you study that and you learn it, he wants that in your heart. So I'm not dealing with or allowing anything to come into my house or my vessel that is a familiar spirit. So I have to, sometimes we look at that, see, the law says kill him. You can't kill him. You're missing the whole point. You're missing the whole point. Yes, that's the outward part of it when they're a nation, because he ain't going to allow that in his nation. But we're not in the kingdom yet, so he wants that in my heart. I shouldn't gravitate. When we were growing up back in the 60s, there was a couple of TV shows that glorified that. back in my day. And to me, 60 wasn't long ago. I know some of y'all, what, 60, what? But back in the day, they had I Dream and Bewitch. And they had that in our culture. They put those shows on TV and they glamorized it, right? They made it look like, ooh, everybody wants a witch. Isn't that something? Everybody want a witch. Everybody wants a genie. But that's how they put it. See, but if I knew Torah, I would immediately see that and dismiss it. That, there's something wrong. As a parent, and I wasn't then, but we can't. Our Torah teaches that we don't even want that in our heart. We don't even want that in our heart because we know what the penalty is for that. So we didn't want it in our heart. So that's what. So when you look at his instructions as a teacher, he wants it in your heart. Because like King Daud says, "Thy word have I hid in my heart that I won't." I won't say. It's got to get in your heart, and that's why he said a lot of people are just looking at the letter. See, that's the way I'm gonna kill him. No, but there's some stuff you shouldn't even allow in your house because it's not in my heart for that. And I'm just saying, I bring that up because they make it seem harmless. They make it seem so harmless to where, yeah, my neighbor is. Whatever her name was. Samantha, I think, wasn't it? Yeah. That's my neighbor. Everybody want a neighbor like that. Can do magical things, make things appear and disappear. As far as our Abba is, and the reason why he had to say that, because there was other nations who had wizards and sorcerers that could do that. The Witch of Endor was one of them. Very powerful. You can't say there ain't no witches or warlocks. Oh, there are. He just doesn't want it in our camp. I don't want that. I don't want that in our camp. Not in my nation. I know other nations because he didn't give his Torah, his instructions to all the other nations. He gave it to Yasharel. Even when Balaam came, Balaam was not an Israelite. He was not an Israelite. He wasn't under the law. And that's why it tells us in Revelation, Balaam taught Israel to what? Taught them how to sin. I use Balaam because your enemy used this false prophet to curse you. I turned that curse into a blessing, but you keep calling him back for revivals. To where he begins to teach you how to, because the law wasn't given to him. He wasn't under no law. Well, y'all can't do that. Let me show you how to do it. No, wait a minute. Wait a minute. That, in my heart, I can't do that. I'm under a law. Because it says Balaam taught them how to sin. And to Abba, that was abomination. But for a lot of us, we keep bringing it back into the house. We keep allowing it. Because after a while, it's going to teach you how to sin. When you would not have done it, but because you allowed it in. And then once it gets in, and it's there for a while, then it's going to teach you. It'll become your teacher. And that's why it's important, even for our young people, you got to get this in your heart. It's got to just be inside. It just has to be your normal way of thinking. His Torah is just my normal way of thinking. I get up in the morning, I'm thinking about it. I'm not as just a teacher do I have to think about it and stuff, but the application. I have to make the application. Because if you're not making the application, then it's just on a letter. And like Shaul said, that letter now, it's going to kill you. Because you're going to mess up somewhere. It can't just be in the Bible. It has to be in your heart. Okay? So he's going to magnify and he's going to make it honorable. He's going to make it honorable. But he goes on to say But this is a people robbed, spoiled. And that spoiled don't mean you get everything you want. No, that spoiled mean they didn't taken a lot of stuff from you. They robbed you. They took your belongings. They took a lot of stuff from you. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivereth. And this is speaking, because Abba Yah says, he's already seen it. I've seen this. I know the whole history, the whole story. I know where they're going to end up. Prison houses, they're going to be a prey. Crime Bill Clinton, crime Bill Biden, they're going to be a prey. And none delivereth. For a spoil, and none saith, restore your people, Yah. Restore your people. And I know a lot of people think that it don't matter, Israel, it don't matter. No. In this book, it does matter. It might not matter to you. Just say that. Just be honest. It doesn't matter to me. That's what you should say. But you can't put that on Yah, because it does matter, because he had chosen Yasharel to be a royal priesthood, to be the go-between between him and all the other nations. And you'll see that. I don't have time tonight, but you'll see that when it talks about what those in his kingdom going to reign with him forever in his kingdom. There's going to be other dominions, and all these other dominions got to come and serve. Let me do that real quick, and we'll come back here. In Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7, and let's look at verse 22. I'm going to skip down. I'm not going to read all this. Until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. And the time came that the saints possess the kingdom. Now, this is in the future. This is talking about in the future, right? Then I want to go down to, let's look. We might as well look at verse 25. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. So some of the keys here that you have to look at is, of course, the saints of the Most High, and then who actually changed times and laws. The authority or the kingdom or the nation, because he talks about these different beasts, that is able to change times and laws. Those are the ones that they wore out my saints. So it's a clear shot, because all you got to do is who changed the times, and who changed the laws. Because when you look at the Roman religion, they did change it. And if you look at the Roman Catholic Church 10 Commandments, has anybody seen their 10 Commandments? They changed it. Seek to change times and laws. Y'all don't have to keep, and when they tell you y'all don't have to keep no laws, we took it to heart. And we became lawless. Because we were under law and authority of the Most High. So when they say, "Oh, you ain't under no law, authority of the Most High," we became criminals. And it's like it said in Isaiah, you were used as a prey. They preyed on you. They still do it today. It's so obvious. I don't know. It's very obvious. And they shall be given into his hand, but it's just for a certain time, a time and times and the dividing of time. And then look at verse 26. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole earth shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is what? An everlasting kingdom. When we talked about that entrance, he says he opened up an entrance into the everlasting kingdom. Where did he say that? We've been looking at that last couple of days. The entrance was open unto the everlasting kingdom. Where's that at? Well, it's in 2 Kepha, chapter 1. Y'all know that. I didn't even have to say it because y'all know it, right? Yeah. We were talking about building, right? Let's see if we can name the 8 things we're supposed to build on. What's the first one? No, he said first one is, because we were talking about building blocks, because if we do these things and abound, we shall never fail. And the entrance to the everlasting kingdom is gone. And we missed them. No, faith. Well, let's go look at it. And virtues 2. Okay, let's see what Kepha says. 2 Kepha chapter 1. Yeah. It says giving all diligence, which means, what does diligence mean? We got some college students, diligence. To haste, diligent means to. Yeah. It's almost like he told Timothy, study to what? Show yourself approved. I mean, you got to have some consistency. You got to keep doing it. You don't just read it one time. Read it one time is not being diligent. Yeah. So those some of the. So what is it? Do we have it up there? Oh, you don't have it? Okay. Because it talks about giving all diligence. You add to your faith. So you got faith first, virtue, knowledge, temperance, patience, holiness, brotherly kindness, charity. Because he says if these things be in you and abound, he says these things are going to unlock, or the entrance into, what does verse number 11 say? For so an entrance shall be ministered unto you abundantly into what? So back to Daniel 7. Remember that. Daniel 7:27. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is what? Everlasting kingdom. So how you think you're going to get in there? How you think you're going to get in there? Because he breaks it down for us. Now, look at this, because we're talking about future now. And all dominions shall serve and obey him, because his saints, his chosen ones, his set apart ones, are the priests, or those who are a go-between between the Most High and all these other dominions. That everlasting kingdom and that new heaven and new earth, we don't know how big it's going to be. We don't know how big it's going to be. We don't have a clue. You think the earth is big now, you ain't got a clue. Because in Revelation 21, the city is going to what? Come down on the new earth. And it's a vast, the city is just, so on that new earth, it says, okay, we're going to be the priests. We're going to be the ones who are going to be able to be the conduit, or the go-between between all these other dominions. And it's an everlasting kingdom. And it's going to be on a new heaven and a new earth. We cannot comprehend with a finite mind what lies ahead for us. We can't comprehend. It's too glorious, it's too big, it's too colossal. But what we can comprehend is the fruit of the Spirit and those building blocks. I can comprehend that. That's not far-fetched. That's not so far off, like he says in Deuteronomy. It's not so far off that you can't attain unto it. Remember he said that in Deuteronomy, and even Paul says it. It's not up in the heavens that you can't obtain unto it, or so far down below that you can't get it to send up. But he says what? I didn't say that. I didn't say that verbatim. Right? Because Paul brings it up. Deuteronomy chapter 30, start at verse number 11. This is going to be it. For this commandment which I command thee this day, it is not hidden from thee, neither is it far off. So even though I cannot comprehend some of the things, when you talk about everlasting kingdom and you're never going to die, can you, with a finite mind and a human body, can you understand that? It's beyond my thinking. I don't know what it means to be everlasting, because we live in terms. You know, a time to live, a time to die. I mean, we're terms. So it's kind of it. And then when they talk about a new heaven and new earth, can you even comprehend a new heaven and new earth? We can't, because all we know is the one that's here. In fact, they told us it's a globe. We all don't know. Ain't nobody been out to see, but that's what they told us. And we send out all these things up in the Shamaim and all. I mean, they're telling us a lot of stuff, but have you really? And when John talked about the city called heaven, right? It's called heaven because it's being made in heaven, but it's going to come down. Not on this earth, but on the new. But it's so colossal, so big. I mean, how do you? John was trying to comprehend it. How can you comprehend it? So there's some things that are very far. I mean, things that, man, I don't know if I can grasp. But listen. For this commandment which I command thee this day is not hidden from thee, neither is it far off. It is not in heaven that thou shouldest say, who shall go up for us to the Shamaim and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it. Right? You know who else said this? Somebody quoted this. Oh, y'all don't know who quoted this and where it's at? It is not in Shamaim that thou shouldest say, who shall go up for us to Shamaim and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it. Neither is it beneath the sea that thou shouldest say, who shall go over the sea for us and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it. But the word is what? Very nigh unto thee. Where is it? In thy mouth. Is it up there? Where is it? It's in thy mouth and in thy, that thou mayest. It's not difficult. It's not hard. It's not something that's far. I might not be able to comprehend a lot of that other stuff, but this I can. I don't need nobody to go all the way up to the Shamaim and get it from Yahusha. I don't have to do that. It's already here. It's nigh unto thee, that thou mayest do it, because it's in your mouth and it's in your heart. Right? So right. So Paul was quoting Deuteronomy. Let's go to Romans 10 and 5. Paul was, because see, all Paul had was the Torah and Tanakh. That's all he had. He wrote letters to. So Romans 10 and 5, for Musha describeth the righteousness which is in the law. Nobody should say they can't do it. It should be in your heart. You should be able to. It's too far from me. I can't comprehend it. Yeah, you can. When we talked about faith, virtue, knowledge, temperance, patience, your holiness, brotherly kindness, charity. All that's right here. You don't have to go far, take a spaceship and go out there and get it. He says here, for Musha describeth the righteousness which is of the law, that the man which doeth those things shall live by them. But the righteousness which is of faith speaketh on this wise. Say not in thy heart, who shall ascend into the Shamaim, that is, to bring the Mashiach down. Or who shall descend into the deep, that is, to bring up the Mashiach again from the dead. But what saith it? The word is nigh thee, in thy mouth and in thy heart. That is the word of faith, which we preach. So what Shaul did was he took Deuteronomy chapter 30 because he knew it. He knew it like the back of his hand. And so he's saying what Moses said, that should be in your heart. And the only way it can get in your heart and in your mouth is by what? Somebody said it. Faith. Isn't that what he says? It should be in your heart and in your mouth. And if it's not, it's probably because you don't have no faith. Because it's the faith that puts it there. And that's why he says faith, you got to have faith, and then you got to have this, and you got to be done diligently. Faith. Because with Abba, without faith, it's impossible to please him. I don't think I can do that. That's not pleasing to Yah. That's not pleasing to Yah. We didn't finish. My time is up. I see the go. But we didn't even finish Isaiah 42. If you keep reading down there, we can do it next time. Well, see, 42, but he kind of, one thing with prophecy, there's prophecy that has been fulfilled, then there's prophecy that has not been fulfilled. So you can read through that. Well, I know this is done, this is not done, this is done. Because in the days that Isaiah wrote it, he wrote a lot about future things that hadn't happened yet. Even Daniel, when we read in Daniel, he says, man, this beast, they're going to seek to change times and laws. That wasn't in his day, but he knew it was coming. And that has happened. They've already changed times and laws. So we know who he's talking about. He didn't know. He didn't know which empire it was and the name of it like we know today. But all of that hasn't been fulfilled, but that part has. So when you read through there, you have to recognize what's been fulfilled and what hasn't been fulfilled. But all of this is going to work together because just we got to take away all excuses, especially when we come up to Pesach. We got to take away all excuses. Yah's not going to, when you have your appointment with him, he's not going to, he might listen to your excuse, but don't think it's going to go too far. It's not going to go too far. And then, because I do want to talk about life, death, gathering, death, resurrection, and kind of set out a pattern because there's different things happen. It's not just all one conclusive thing. You have to recognize the different periods of what happens. Who's going to be judged at death? Who's going to be, because when we went to Revelation 22, when we went there, that's talking about the white throne judgment. If you are in the white throne judgment, that means you missed all the resurrections, because that's the last one. So if you're not in a resurrection before the white throne judgment, then you probably didn't make it. You didn't make it. Because, and it talks about, and so we have to see that timeline, and hopefully I can break it down, because Hebrews 9:27, some of us knows what Hebrews 9:27 says. Because, and if I start it, you'll be able to finish it. Um, for it is appointed unto man once to die, and after this. So we have to see where that fits in. We have to see where that fits in, because there's more than one resurrection. There's more than one resurrection. So we got to, and hopefully we can break that down before the gathering, because I say that because if this is the war that triggers the judgment on all these nations through war and death and everything, then, and which is going to bring on the man that they're looking for, that is going to eventually bring about the mark and everything. If you're here and you have to decide whether you're going to take the mark or not, then you missed the gathering. You didn't make the gathering. And in order to be saved, you got to do what? You got to give up your head. That dilemma is not for those that he's gathered and brought into the place of refuge while all this stuff is going on. That there, when it talks about the mark, are those who didn't make the gathering. And so then you're left, then the only way, because if you're not gathered with Yasharel when he gathers his people and stuff, if you're not gathered, then you're going to have to decide, am I going to take the mark or am I going to give up my life? And I'm telling y'all, folks don't like to fast now. Don't think you're going to tough it out, because you don't fast now. How you can't go 12 hours without a meal. How you going to go weeks, can't eat nothing, and you're trying to find water, and you can't go to the store because you have to show the mark in order to get something? How you going to survive? You don't know how to plant a garden. You think green beans is salad. I'm just saying, I don't know. Lettuce, you can't tell the difference between lettuce and a tomato in a plant. You plant stuff you don't know. How you going to survive? It's going to be virtually impossible. So but there are people that's going to give up they're just going to say, hey, I know that I'm not taking the mark, but we're going to kill you. Well, then you just have to do it. Those are the ones that'll make a resurrection when it talks about it in Revelations 20. But you're going to have, so you have to know what the resurrection, what the stages are, and how that Hebrews 9:27, how that fits in there. All right, so my time's up. Say Torah to everybody that was able to join us. It's 8:05 Central Standard Time. So we'll be back here on the Shabbat, right? It's good to see everybody that's here. Nathan is here with us on tonight, and all of us that are here. No question. Anybody got anything they want to say? Comments? They want to add anything? Let's remember on tomorrow there's going to be special prayer for the Zakinium. I'll put that in the Telegram chat. I'll put it in that. Those who want to